Toward the weekend on the JT Show, Richard Cross in for Gerard. Thanks for being with us. We are joined right now by Mississippi's 4th Congressional District Congressman Steven Palazzo. Congressman Palazzo, thanks for a little bit of your time. Hope you have a great weekend coming up. I want to jump in and try to unpack some of what is going on, I guess, at home and abroad. Let's start with Afghanistan. And I don't even know if I'm asking the right question to begin this, but it also feels like a bigger picture question. What is our foreign policy plan right now? Or is it just make it up as we go for this President Biden?
Yeah, well, Richard, thanks for having me on. I think that big question mark that you put at the end of that question is the same question mark that we have. It's like for decades we've had exact foreign policies, how to use our State Department, how to use our military. Under President Trump, we actually rebuilt our military, and for a long time, our enemies actually feared us and our allies trusted us. We blew that. On August 16th, we just basically, when we betrayed Afghanistan and betrayed our allies in a fashion of a complete withdrawal and abandonment of the Afghanistan people, we set back decades of foreign policy and team building with militaries and countries all around the world to counter the malign influences of Iran, China, Russia, and countries of that nature. We blew that in a fraction, and I think as we're still muscling through this. I mean, you've seen the images. We have thousands and thousands of people fleeing. We know that tens of thousands of people are going to be murdered under the Taliban. Anybody that helped Americans or our allies, they're going to be murdered. Their families are going to be tortured and then probably murdered. And it's all because of this president's failure to grasp reality. And I think Milley has failed the president. I think Secretary Austin has failed the president. And by failing the president, they have failed the United States of America. This should not be happening. We should not be having this conversation. But we are. And, what really scares me, Richard, is the fact that, I was actually on an oversight, armed services oversight mission in Eastern Europe, where we have Russia building up their forces and continuing a hybrid warfare, with our NATO allies. And, half the countries were like, hey, we want more U.S. troops. We appreciate our partnerships. And when the news broke, the other half of the countries are saying, are y'all going to stay with us? Are y'all going to be
here? There's that balance.
Yeah, they're like, can we trust you anymore?
All right, so let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
So I actually agreed with part of the sentiment of one thing that President Biden said the other day. He said, it's a 2 decades old war, and I don't want to pass this on to a 5th president. And there's part of me that agrees with that, but obviously the execution of this has been terrible. You're a veteran. You obviously have worked in the halls of Washington for an extended period of time. How should we have handled this, Congressman Palazzo?
Right. And that's a great question, Richard. And I know many of us have said, have we been there too long? Did we stay too long? Should we have gotten out sooner? I'd have to say previous administrations, it's not just the battles and the short-term victories, but when we enter into this, we need to understand, well, first of all, we got to have a great understanding of the indigenous cultures, and we also must have a long-term alliance and the building of a stable government, and a government where the people would actually have loyalty and faith and confidence. And we should have done that, but you just can't pull out the way we pulled out and created all the blood and treasure over the 20 years, over 2,500 Americans, over 50,000 Afghanis have gave their lives fighting the Taliban, fighting Al-Qaeda, fighting ISIS, or any other malign influence that participates.
Is it all in vain now, though? Because of the way we've pulled out and the immediate takeover by the Taliban, is every one of those lives now in vain?
Yes. Well, no. Let's stop back. No, any service member that's ever served and sacrificed is never in vain. They did their jobs. The failure is not on our military, and it's not on their families. The failure is on our politicians, starting with the President of the United States, not just perhaps this president, but previous administrations. There was nothing that required our immediate withdrawal. We could have kept a sustainable force there, a very small footprint, just like we did. When Obama pulled everybody out of Iraq, we had to go right back in because Iraq was falling apart. And if he would have just left a small footprint to command and control the Afghanis and to give them that confidence and to provide them with the air support that they need, and not our boots on the ground, but their boots on the ground, clearing places and taking out the bad guys. It was working in Iraq, but as soon as we pulled that little small element out to meet a campaign promise, again, political promises are putting people's lives at risk. If we did the same thing in Afghanistan, but this president didn't have either the grips on the situation, or he didn't have the courage to stay there and continue trying. I mean, there's going to be a time where we possibly would have withdrawn, but this was not the way to do it.
But there's no reversing course now, is there? I mean, aren't we far enough into this that, I mean, you can't slam on the brakes, whether it's because of the political theater involved with it or the fact that you just can't put the toothpaste back in the tube without, my goodness, I mean, the logistics of trying to pull that off seem impossible.
Yeah, sadly, you're right. And this administration, put it this way, we wouldn't want to try to do it under this administration. I don't think future administrations will be able to do it as well. It's just, there's so many unknowns. One is, the lack of faith and confidence from our allies. We've emboldened our enemies. I mean, China's actually conducting live fire exercises around Taiwan. I mean, this was a gift of epic proportions, and so you got to really think what was the harm in maintaining a 2,000 to 3,000 personnel presence with reconnaissance, with air superiority, helping to control and coordinate, eliminating the terrorists and the bad guys, and continuing to build up Afghans' confidence. They just weren't there yet. It shows you that many of them are willing to fight and die for their country, because they had over 60,000 Afghanis have died fighting for their country. But so to meet this campaign promise, how cool would it be to be out of Afghanistan on the 20th anniversary of 9/11? Well, he may have created the possibility of many more 9/11s, because Afghanistan is going to fall right back into the Taliban's hands. They're going to breed terrorists, and those terrorists are pissed, and they're going to want to kill Americans. They're already killing Afghan allies and torturing their families and murdering their families, raping young women. They're targeting Christians. Our intel community warned us about this. Milley Alston and the president, this is no surprise. They knew that the likelihood of this was going to happen, would happen. It probably was stunning that it happened so fast. But it was like we're retreating. Why wouldn't the Taliban? As we retreat,
I mean,
they come
incredibly predictable, even for folks that don't have decades of institutional knowledge there. I do want to switch gears with you. We've got 2 minutes left, Congressman Palazzo. The Capitol bomb threat over the last couple of days, and sadly, I feel like we're in a place where something like that, and I'm not being disrespectful when I say this, doesn't send off the alarm bells that it should. I mean, if we rewind a decade, talk about a bomb threat outside the United States Capitol, I mean, it's a weeks-long story, whereas in the world that we're in right now, it just feels like, oh, yeah, another bomb threat. What can you tell us, and should you ladies and gentlemen feel safe?
Yeah, look, Richard, that's a good question. I mean, out of all the craziness that we have witnessed over the past 8 months, all the craziness that we witnessed in 2020, where basically domestic terrorists were burning and tearing down cities and going after our cops, and then being supported by the Democrats and the socialist part of their party, and defunding the police. It's got people, acting very strangely, and people are reacting to things very differently. And, it's almost like they become, desensitized to violence and extremism. And, that's why it's important for the Republicans and Democrats to come together and realize that our rhetoric is ripping this country apart, and we need to govern, but we can't govern with a Biden administration that's totally incompetent. And but that doesn't mean Congress has to continue playing in these political games. We can come together and help lead this country until we can get a new executive in chief in the White House.
Congressman Palazzo, really appreciate your time on this Friday morning. Look forward to visiting with you down the line. Stay safe and keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you, Richard, and God bless our troops and their families. Please reach out to them if you have an opportunity and thank them for their service.
Thank you for yours as well. Congressman Steven